Testing. It's been a long time. I don't know if all this stuff still works. Don't even know if I still work. Oh God, it's a thought.
What did I say?
During the meanwhilest.
During the meanwhilest? No, I don't like that at all.
Hello, it's Dexter and me, and we are back after our short little spring break. Not a spring break like they have in, like, you know, America when all the students go nuts. This was our very, very quiet, reserved spring break. Anyway, we are back, not with a hoped for outdoors vlog, but with a gear review, unfortunately. And it's a review of my new Fujifilm GF100-200mm lens. Now, looking on YouTube, there aren't that many actual reviews of this lens that I could find. 2 or 3, probably, tops. So I figured that mine might be worthwhile, actually, for once. I'm going to make a worthwhile video. Oh, hey, that'll be a change, won't it? Anyway, this is Fuji's medium telephoto lens for its medium format system, but there's nothing medium about it at all. It is absolutely stellar. The cost is pretty stellar for a start. It cost me 1,799 of my hard saved pounds. Not inexpensive, but in medium format terms, not hugely expensive either. It did hurt though, buying it, because a week after I bought this, my MacBook Pro, my 16-inch MacBook Pro got damaged. I don't know how. This screen got cracked. It's an absolute mystery as to how it happened. It happened when I was out of the house for the day, running a family or doing a family errand. I have quizzed both the ladies, and I've quizzed Dexter at length, but I just don't know. I don't know whether I closed the lid in the one place that's going to cause a hairline crack to the screen. I've no idea. But after forking out £1,800 for this lens, I had to then dig deep into my wallet to find another £680 to replace the screen. Well, anyway. Right, the lens. Let's get back on track and not talk about money because it's depressing. The zoom range is 100 to 200 millimeters, or in full frame field of view equivalent, that's 78 to 156 millimeters, so 80 to 160, and call it that. It's a constant f5.6 aperture right across the zoom range. So not the fastest aperture, but we'll get onto that a little bit later when we start talking about this lens's image making capabilities. It has optical image stabilization, which is rated for 5 stops, and again we'll test that later on. It has a 67mm front filter thread, so quite small really. I wouldn't consider that. My 32 to 64 lens has a 77 thread, and my 23mm lens has an 82mm thread, so quite a small front filter thread to this lens. It's rated as weather resistant, and it has a numbered clicky aperture ring which goes from 5.6 to 32 in 1/3 increments, or 1/3 stops, and then it has locked out positions for shooting in either program mode or shutter priority, and then a C position for using one of the command dials. You can assign one of the command dials then to change aperture on the lens. The lens zooms internally, so it doesn't sort of extend in size as you zoom it, thankfully, because it's big enough as it is, especially with the collar on. The zoom ring is, it's lovely, it's beautifully controlled and damped. You can move it with one finger or your thumb, but you're not going to move it accidentally, put it that way, then it's firm enough. The aperture ring, as I said, is nice and clicky or clickety, and it's quite firm, or quite firm. It's very firm, in fact. You're not going to bump that. And the same can be said for the manual focus ring, which again is nicely damped, very, very firm. You're not going to, you know, bump it. But one disadvantage, in common with my other GF lenses, is that it is focused by wire. So there are no hard stops at infinity or at the lens's closest focus distance. Right then, talking of closest focal or focus distance, I've measured these myself in good lighting conditions, and I could get at 100 millimeters a closest focal distance of 60 centimeters, going out to 100, and I have to check my notes a second, going out to 160 centimeters at 200 millimeters. So not super close, but then this isn't a lens designed for macro or close focusing capabilities. The weight of the lens is not a problem. It weighs between 1 and 1.2 kilograms, depending on whether you've got the collar on it or the lens hood. It doesn't really need a tripod collar, to be honest. I found it's not that heavy, and it's beautifully balanced on the GFX without the collar. So I shoot it most times without the aperture collar on. The aperture collar itself is a lovely sort of aluminium piece of kit. But its use is a little bit, shall I say, it's a bit redundant, because one, you don't need it because of the weight, and two, there are no like geared or ratcheted stops on it, so you can't lock it at 90 degrees. When you change the sort of orientation of your camera, it won't lock. Although there are data points on the lens and on the collar, so you know where, you know, to the top dead center and 90 degrees are. The hood is a plastic affair. It's huge. It's about half the size of the lens again. It has, in common with other lenses in the GF range, a switch or a clutch to enable its removal. And this one also has a handy little door. So if you have a 67 millimeter circular polarizing filter, or perhaps a variable ND, you can operate that without having to take the lens hood off. Well, that's it for the lenses specifications. Part 2 of this video will concentrate on autofocus, image quality, right across the zoom range. Yeah, so we'll have a look at that right now. Right, well, it's a week or so on since I filmed the introduction to this review and sort of going through the specs of the lens, and I've not really had much of a chance to go out and used it because of lockdown. Still pretty much stuck at home. I'm still officially shielding, and it's all a bit of a ball ache. We can't really go anywhere, so I haven't really taken a proper, what I would call a proper landscape image, like on the tripod with this lens. Every shot I've taken has been like a handheld snapshot or a test shot. But that's not to say I haven't used the lens, or not to say I haven't been able to formulate an opinion about it. And I think it's a superb lens. In use on the camera, it's really well balanced. You don't need the tripod collar. It's almost a sort of perfect 50-50 weight distribution between lens and camera. So it sits really nicely in the hand during use. What I'll do now, though, is have a quick look through some or a couple of the images, and bear with me while I get these up on the screen. A couple of images that I shot for test purposes. Hang on, let me just get this up. Slick, this channel, isn't it? It really is, really is. The first one, here we go. It's a not altogether inspiring shot of my fence, but I shot this, let me get out of the way, I shot this so that we could have a look at corner-to-corner sharpness and vignetting, and there is some vignetting at f5.6. I shot at f5.6 and f16. I usually shoot at f16 with my GFX camera, so I wanted to see what sort of corner-to-corner sharpness was like there, and it's fantastic. I mean, vignetting's gone by f8. There is none. But just look at these images here, and corner-to-corner sharpness. It's tack sharp. I mean, you can't fault the optical performance of this lens at either 100 or 200 millimeters, and really right across the aperture range, certainly up to f16. I haven't pushed it beyond that, as I would never normally shoot beyond f16 in the real world in any event. But looking at these images of my fence, I think you can safely see that sharpness is not a problem with this lens. Right, if we have a look at another image I shot just the other day of a bridge, a railway bridge near where I live. Probably from around about, I would say, 100 meters from the bridge. If you have a look at the settings using, it's nearly 200 millimeters, not quite, f5.6, and just look at the detail that this lens has enabled the camera to record. Fantastic detail in the brickwork. Excuse the shadows there. Even down to not even this camera can resolve the inside of a tunnel. Right down to the shingle and shale on the tracks down there. The detail is just absolutely incredible. That's at 300% there. So zooming out to 100%, again, you can see incredible levels of detail, and back to 300%. From 100 meters away, and you can almost read, well, you can read one of the signs, definitely. You can almost read all of them. So there's no problems with this lens rendering the sensors full 51 megapixels, and I would imagine on a GFX 100S you're going to get even more detail out of it. What I'll do now, though, is I'll pop up a few more images to have a look at. Things like rendering the outer focus areas of the bokeh. It's not a fast lens by any manner of means at f5.6. Even in medium format standards, that's not a quick lens. Would I have liked it to be an f4? Yeah, possibly, but then imagine the size and the cost of an f4 zoom lens. Right, so I think in conclusion then, I think two words sum this lens up. Typically Fujifilm. It's built and engineered really, really well. The image quality is absolutely fantastic. Now, that's not to say there are any drawbacks with this lens. There are a couple that I can think of. Construction-wise, the tripod collar is pretty useless, really. You don't need it on the lens because it's not heavy enough. And as I said at the start of this little conclusion, it's well balanced on the camera. But it's pretty well useless because it hasn't got a lockout at 90 degrees. So, you know, you can't sort of lock the camera in portrait orientation if you wanted to do that. Not a biggie for me because I use the camera usually on a tripod with an L bracket. So it's just as easy to take the camera off, switch the orientation, chuck it back on. It's not really a problem. The range, 100 to 200, I think, yeah, 100 to 250 would have been better. But again, you've got to think of the size and the cost implications of producing such a lens. And yeah, f4 would have been nice. But again, imagine how big and how expensive an f4 100 to 250 millimeter medium format lens would be. Plus points though, and I'm going to get my notes because I wrote these down and I don't want to forget anything. Size, weight and cost in relative medium format terms are all plus points. It's not too big, it's not too heavy, and it's not an inexpensive lens, but by medium format standards, I'd say it's pretty good value for money, pretty inexpensive. Focus is, again, in relative terms, it's pretty quick to attain focus. It's not going to match, you know, a full frame sports action wildlife oriented camera and lens. But then, you know, I'm using this on my GFX 50R, which, although no slouch by medium format standards, certainly isn't a fast camera, and this lens isn't a fast lens in terms of focus. What it is though is super sharp across right across the zoom range and right across all the apertures I tested it at, anyway, up to f16. As I said, I didn't go beyond f16. I don't normally shoot beyond that, so I haven't tested for diffraction, but I would imagine it is there. Having optical image stabilization, no, I wouldn't normally say that's a big plus point for me, because I shoot 99.9% of my stuff on a tripod. But in putting these test shots together, I've really enjoyed shooting handheld with the camera, and I've been able to achieve some quite stupid shutter speeds, really, when you consider the system that I'm using. I can get almost down to like 1/4 of a second at, you know, 200 millimeters. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I am quite good at hand holding at low shutter speeds. You know, I can hold it quite firmly, but all the same, to achieve those sorts of results is quite something. So, would I recommend this lens to Fujifilm medium format shooters? Absolutely. I think it's an absolute bargain. So much so that I'm considering, and I know I said in one of my last videos that I'm not going to get a GFX 100S, but I'm considering going all in with medium format, selling my X-T3 and all my X-mount lenses, and shifting everything, video and stills, over to a GFX 100S. Now, this is still a bit of a pipe dream right now. It may not happen, it may not ever happen, but it's something that I'm certainly considering at the moment as a possible future step. Right, that's it for this week's video. Thanks as ever for watching. I hope you found it in some way useful, if not entertaining. And Dexter and I will see you again very, very soon. Stay safe, everybody. Stay well, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
At night in bed I heard God whisper lullabies, while Daddy next door whistled whiskey tunes. Sometimes when I wanted, they would harmonize. There was nothing those two couldn't do. Embrace me, you child, you're a child of mine, and I'm leaving everything I am to you. Go chase the wild and nighttime streets sang Daddy, and God sang pray. The devil doesn't get to you. I thought together they must sing the moon away. I thought that they must know each other well, for the magic that they